Cynthia, Premier Ford was forceful today when calling on the federal government for tougher measures when it comes to border travel. His list includes a mandatory 3-day hotel quarantine for travelers who come into Canada by land and to suspend the arrival of all international students. A health policy expert we spoke with says these measures are coming too late. That ship has already sailed.
If I had the power, I would close down Pearson Airport immediately. I would shut down the land border crossings to only those who are absolutely essential.
Premier Ford says the mandatory 3-day quarantines in hotels for travelers entering Canada at land crossings are necessary to slow the spread of COVID-19 in the province. Ford says there are reports of international travelers booking return flights into nearby American airports.
The problem is with the measures in place, because as long as you can fly to Buffalo, take a taxi or a limo to the U.S. border and walk across to Canada to avoid having to quarantine in a hotel, as long as these massive loopholes exist, we're not safe from these new variants.
In a letter to Canada's Minister of Public Safety, Bill Blair, and Minister of Health, Patty Hajdu, the Ford government says in the past 2 weeks, over 150,000 people, not including essential commercial truckers, have crossed Canada's land borders. This includes dozens of individuals who crossed between April 24th and April 26th after traveling from countries where direct flights to Canada are currently banned. Trudeau says while the 3-day mandatory quarantine at a hotel is needed for air travelers, he doesn't think it's necessary at land crossings, adding the cases are extremely low.
At the borders, there are series of tests. There is a mandatory enforced 2-week quarantine that has been effective in controlling the importation of cases.
Ford also wants tighter restrictions at airports, but says that's federal jurisdiction.
To tighten the airports, to bring in mandatory pre-departure testing for those flying into Ontario from other provinces.
We watched the Atlantic provinces severely limit domestic travel with very strong measures. We watched the Arctic territories doing the same thing to extreme success. And they didn't require the support or the intervention or the permission of the federal government to do it.
Dr. Ahmed Faraz Khalid, a health policy expert at McMaster University, says what Ford is proposing won't necessarily be effective.
Closing borders very early in the pandemic can have an effect. However, much later in the pandemic, it doesn't seem to have an impact. And also, it actually has a tremendous impact on the global burden of economy, costing economies in the billions of dollars. The focus should really shift away from border control to really be thinking about surveillance, testing at borders, quarantine measures, and penalties for anybody that does not follow the guidelines that have been put into place.
The federal government is currently working on the Ontario government's request to suspend the arrival of all international students. Ontario is the only province to make this type of request at this time.